Hi everybody, so I've got another fur focus tutorial today which is going to be looking at the Cocker Spaniel's ear, just working on some curly fur hair that goes in all different directions. I could have spent a lot longer drawing this than what I have done. You'll see it's not as detailed in some areas, so feel free if you want to put more detail in, then definitely do so. But I just wanted to give you a reasonably quick overview of doing a hair sort of like this. So I hope you enjoy it and I hope you find it useful. Because this is quite detailed and there's a lot of different sections, going in all different directions, I'm going to actually do a little bit of a line art first. And I like to trace my line arts because, especially with doing pet portraits, I want to get the line art perfect. And the easiest way I find to do that is to trace. Some people don't like tracing, but I just think it's the best way to get an accurate portrait. So I'll just show you how I do that first, and then I'm going to transfer that over into this circle here. So I'm just gonna, above the circle layer that I've got here, I'm just going to create a new layer, and I'm going to select just any sketching pencil really. So I'm just going to go to the sketching. I'm just going to use this pencil here because it's quite smooth. Change the colour to black would be helpful. Okay, so I'm just going to draw over the top of this image, and then I'm going to move it over into this circle. So I'm not going to draw everything, but just so I can get some rough shapes and make it so that I can follow the direction easier. You might just want to do this freehand, that is entirely up to you. Some people like to use a grid, but I always like to trace. So this wasn't really necessary in the Labrador fur tutorial that I did last because there wasn't a lot of detail. It was mainly just shading in that one, so we didn't really need to worry about the hair direction as much as you do in something complex like this. Okay, so that'll do. It's just to literally get a rough hair direction in there. So I'm just going to select the bit that I've done on this layer. So I'll just use the freehand select here. Okay, and then I'm going to move that over to this circle. Hi guys. So I've got another fur focus tutorial today, and this time I'm looking at the Cocker Spaniel's ear because there's lots of detail in them, lots of different hair directions. It can be quite tricky to get them right, so we're just going to have a look at that today. Because this is quite detailed and there's a lot of different sections, going in all different directions, I'm going to actually do a little bit of a line art first. And I like to trace my line arts because, especially with doing pet portraits, I want to get the line art perfect. And the easiest way I find to do that is to trace. Some people don't like tracing, but I just think it's the best way to get an accurate portrait. So I'll just show you how I do that first, and then I'm going to transfer that over into this circle here. So I'm just going to, above the circle layer that I've got here, I'm just going to create a new layer, and I'm going to select just any sketching pencil really. So I'm just going to go to the sketching. I'm just going to use this pencil here because it's quite smooth. Change the colour to black would be helpful. Okay, so I'm just going to draw over the top of this image, and then I'm going to move it over into this circle. So I'm not going to draw everything, but just so I can get some rough shapes and make it so that I can follow the direction easier. You might just want to do this freehand, that is entirely up to you. Some people like to use a grid, but I always like to trace. this wasn't really necessary in the Labrador Fur tutorial that I did last, because there wasn't a lot of detail. It was mainly just shading in that one, so we didn't really need to worry about the hair direction as much as you do in something complex like this. Okay, so that'll do. It's just to literally get a rough hair direction in there. So I'm just going to select the bit that I've done on this layer, so I'll just use the freehand select here. Okay, and then I'm going to move that over to this circle. Okay, so that'll do. And then from there, I'm just going to work the way that I did last time, but with a slight difference. So you can see, as I did in the Labrador hair tutorial, I'm going to go from light to dark. So I've got my base layer, my darks, my midtones, and my highlights. But because there's a lot of different layers here, we're also going to work from back to front as well. So we're going to put the deepest layers in first. So these bits that you can see at the back here. And then you've got these layers that sort of sit on top. So I just find it easier to do another set of those layers in order to get that in and make sure it looks like the different depths in the portrait. So I'm going to go to my base layer first. Again, I'm going to use the Ultimate Watercolor brush set again, like I did last time. And that's from Nathan Brown Art. You can just buy that on his website. And we're going to use the same brushes as we did in the last one. So my base layer I'm going to fill in with the Perfect brush, but like I said last time, you can also use the textured round. That's quite a good one to use as well. So we're going to select the darkest bits of the ear. So I'm going to start in this section here and these bits here, because these are the darkest. So I'm just going to select the darkest colour in this layer, which is that browny red colour. I've got my Perfect brush. You can check your brush size before you start, so that's too small. And then once you're happy with your brush size, you can just make a start. The opacity, you can just pop that up to 100%. And because of the line art, we can see now where it is that we're putting these details. Okay, and then I'm just going to switch to the next darkest, like a chestnutty brown colour. I'm just going to get those in. And just like last time, I'm not going to worry about going in the lines. So I'm just going to work in this section here at first. Okay, so once I've got the base down, I'm just going to smudge those two together. Just forgot about this section. So I'm going to smudge those together, and in the smudge tool section, I'm going to use the More Water smudger. And I'm going to set the opacity to about 50%, and the brush size, we don't want it too massive because that will smudge it way too much. So I'll set it to about 20. We'll see how we get on. That is too much again. So I'll take that down. That's at 7 now. That's fine. So we're just going to focus on the lines mainly, where we've mixed two colours together, and just smudge those together. Okay, so once we've smudged those bits together, we can then move on to the darks. So everything now, I use the detail line brush to get all the details in, all the hair detail in, and we're just going to put in all the hair strokes following the fur direction as we did the last time, just to make sure that we're making this look as realistic as possible. So I'm going to select the darkest colour again, which is the brown that we used the last time. We're going to put the opacity up to 100 and we want the brush to be quite small. It's probably a little bit too small. I'm going to increase it a bit. Right, so that brush size is 8 or 9%. So we're going to go with that, and then we're just going to put all of the dark hair strokes in, following the hair directions like I said. So I'm going to start up here in this section. And where you can see it really dark, we just want to make sure that we're putting those hair strokes really close together. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for this bit. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that bit for now down there. We're just going to put in a few of the darks just up here in this section, so you can see this sort of triangle shape is this bit here. And again, just follow the hair direction as we did before. Okay, so that's the darkest darks. And we're just going to fill in the darks on this middle section here, following exactly the same technique. So select your darkest. It's like quite a deep red. I'm just going to darken that ever so slightly. Okay, so I'm going to work on this little bit here. And then, because you'll notice that the fur sort of changes direction in this bit here. So just this section here we're going to do. So you just want to pull that red into that dark brown as you go in. And as I said the last time, if you did watch the Labrador tutorial, you do need to trust the process, because you'll look at what you're drawing and you're going to think, how on earth is that going to turn into a Cocker Spaniel ear? And when you put in those first few layers, it just looks terrible. But once you start adding in the midtones and particularly the highlights, it does just come together. So you can see all the different hair directions here that I'm following. So this bit here, working on this small section here. It's when you've got such a detailed thing like this, it is quite easy to get overwhelmed. So just breaking it down into these tiny sections can help your eye stay focused, and then you don't lose sight of the bit that you're working on. So I'm going to use my More Water smudge tool again, just to smudge all these lines together, but we don't want to lose the detail that we've put in. So I'm going to increase my brush size slightly. That's going to 15, and the opacity I'm going to reduce. Let's try it at about 30% and see how we get on. And we just want to follow the hair direction as we're smudging. Odin. Sorry, he's now licking himself really loudly. Okay, so once that's all smudged together, I'm going to move on to the mid-tone layer. Okay, so I'm going to start putting in all of these chestnutty browns in this ear. Again, using the detail liner, I'm not going to alter any settings. I'm just going to keep everything the same. Odin. And exactly the same as we did earlier, following the hair direction and working section by section. Now we don't want to completely colour in this section and hide all of the darks that we've just put in underneath. So just make sure you're not obscuring everything. Okay, and then just selecting the next colour. So I'm going to go for, I don't know if you can see these slightly golden, more golden orangey sections here. That's the next colour I'm going to try and pinpoint. You don't have to use the colour select tool. You can just go by eye and select it off the chart. It's entirely up to you. And when you put it down, if you don't think it's light enough, you can just alter it. Okay, and then we're going to do the same again. Just gently smudge those together, not losing the detail. We don't want to press. I'll show you what, if we press really hard, see what happens. It just completely erases that. So a nice light pressure, because it is a pressure sensitive brush. And just following the hair direction. All we're doing is softening. We're not blending everything together. Okay, so we're going to move on to the highlights. Just have a quick drink. So I'm going to try and select the light gold, but I've got a feeling I am going to have to lighten it up here in this bit. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it's just not quite showing enough. So just lighten that up slightly. And then we're going to do the same again. Just putting in the highlights, but obviously this area, and that's too dark now, that's too bright now. This area is not going to be heavily highlighted. I'm actually going to change this because I don't think it's quite yellowy enough. There you go. Yeah, so this area, it's not going to be really heavily highlighted because, as I said, this bit is set back from the rest. So you can see this area is where you've got your really bright highlights, and the highlights in this section are not very bright at all. But all of this shadowing, that's what's going to make things look realistic, give it a lot of depth. And working in layers, we can always go back if something isn't quite dark enough and not quite light enough. We can always go back later and just edit that slightly. So I'm just smudging together again. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So you will notice that I haven't put in the sort of loose hairs, like obviously that go across here, that go in directions. I'm going to put those in at the end. Once I've got everything down, then I'm going to go back and add in those little floaty details at the end. So we're going to move on to the next section now. So as you can see, we've worked on the deepest area in the photo, and we're now going to work towards the foreground hairs. So that's why I've created this next lot of layers, exactly the same as I did earlier. In fact, we just need another base layer. So all of these layers will now sit on top of these. So any that overlap, it just makes it easier if you just create a new set of layers. So exactly the same process again, just selecting the darkest areas, filling those in, and then working from dark to light. So I'm going to do the perfect brush again. And I'm just going to add in all the next section. So it doesn't have to be neat. You don't need to be worried about this bit looking messy. It's just to get a rough guide. We're going to smudge it all together anyway. I just want to make sure everything now in this section is completely covered. I don't want to leave any white bits. Okay, so again with the more water smudger, we're just going to smudge all of those bits together. Just to get rid of any rough edges before we go in and add the details. Okay, so that's all filled in. So we're going to move on to the next dark layer. So we're going to go back to the detail line brush, and we're just going to put in our darks as we did before. So again, just select the darkest point and just start filling in those darks. So you can see the line art, you can't really see it very much, but it does just help. It is more for the hair direction than anything. So we're going to work on this section first, and obviously this line up here, which you can see is here, and then the hair starts to flick out towards the right here at the bottom. So same as before, follow the hair direction. Doesn't need to be perfect, because we are going to smudge it together. So again, you can see I am working in sections. Then I'm not getting all confused about where it is I'm going. Okay, so that's the darkest darks all down. So doing what we did last time, we're just going to move towards the next darkest colour, which is that chestnutty brown again. And I'm going over the areas where you can see that it does overlap. So you can see I'm really not worrying about being super duper neat or anything. When I'm doing this, I'm not working really slowly. You can go as slowly or as quickly as you want to, but I'm just getting the hair strokes down in the direction, and then the smudging is going to take care of the rest. Okay, so I think that's all of the darkest colours in here now. I'm actually just going to darken up this section here, just ever so slightly, as it is in the picture. Okay, and then we can just go and smudge those together, following the hair direction. Not too hard, not putting really heavy pressure on, because we don't want to get rid of all of that, those lines that we've just put in. We still want to see the detail, but it doesn't need to be as harsh. Now we can move on to the mid-tones. Exactly the same as previously. And we're going to start putting in all of these mid sections here. And then obviously the highlights are going to be last. So we're going to put in, it's a bit more of a pinky orange. Let's see how that shows up. Yeah, happy with that. And it's exactly the same technique for every layer. So we don't want to cover up the darks. You might want to take a little bit more care on this layer to make sure that you're getting the hair directions in. Sorry, I'm not speaking very much here. I'm just trying to concentrate on all of the different sections that are going in. It's really easy to lose track of where you're up to in something like this, so you might just need a little bit of extra focus. So I'm just going to lighten this up again into the next shade. Okay, we're just going to blend those together again. Okie dokie, so now all that's left is the highlights. Let's have a look how this shows. Go a little bit lighter. Okay, and the same again, just doing what we did earlier, just getting those highlights in. We might need to go even lighter in some sections. That's not a problem though, we can just do that at the end. So I'm going to start putting in those wispy hairs that cross over, like here. I'm going to start putting those in this section as well. It's too light for there. Ones like this, I'll have to add in right at the end. I might even have to put another layer to get those in to avoid ruining the layers underneath. And when I do my pastel portraits, you work in layers exactly the same. I do the same technique in those as well. I don't know about you guys, but I always find sometimes when I try and do a slow line, my hand just wiggles off into all kinds of directions that it's not supposed to. That's another reason why I like to trace as well, because God knows what it'd end up looking like if I didn't. Okay, so let's smudge these over and then we'll just see if we need to go lighter. Yeah, we definitely need to go lighter in some of these sections. Okie doke. Normally when I'm working like this, I would have normally just turned the page, just, you know, to make it easier for my hand, just because I'm filming. I can't really do that, and I don't want to be spinning the page around all over everywhere and confusing people. So if I look a bit awkward, it's because I normally would have turned the page. So feel free to obviously manipulate it just so it makes it easier, whatever angle you're more comfortable drawing at. It'll probably make everybody go dizzy if I start flipping it around everywhere. Okay, give that a little smudge. Right, so I'm going to turn off the line art now. There we go, so that's now gone. And then we're just going to add in some more wispy hairs to the front. So what I'm going to do is, just to be safe, I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to turn the opacity down of the detailed liner, just because I don't want them to be really harsh lines. I just, you know, want them to be nice and thin, and we can just put in those wherever we see them. They don't even have to be, the wispy hairs don't have to be accurate at all. They can just go in anywhere, even if it's not on the picture. Sometimes I find it's nice to add a few more little wispies. What we can do with these as well is, rather than blur the whole thing, we can just blur the tips, because that's a really unnatural wisp of hair. So if we just smudge the edges, the ends of the hair, sorry, then that just makes it look a lot more natural. I'm going to make it thicker just to get that wisp in here. What you can also do is you can see just where the base layer is overlapping a little bit here at the bottom. So we can just get rid of that and go back to the base layer and erase that bit there. So I'm just going to smudge the ends of these, just to make them look a little bit more natural. And because we've created a new layer to do this, we don't need to worry about damaging anything underneath. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the base now, and I'm just going to slightly erase the bits that are overlapping. So that is it. Hopefully that helped everybody. Any more dogs you want me to do? I've not done this section here because this is part of the body, but you obviously could do that. I was mainly focusing on this ear here. So yeah, I hope that helped everybody. Any particular dog breed that you want me to do in the next fur focus tutorial, just let me know and I can fit that in somewhere. Sorry it's taken a little longer than the last one did to get this up, so keep yourselves posted for the next one. Thank you.